Senator Charles Grassley, the Republican ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, has cited CBO estimates, Congressional Budget Office estimates, that your budget will add $9 trillion to the national debt over the next decade.
Our debt as a percentage of the economy will grow in excess of 80%, a level also that has not been seen since this country was in World War II.
That is a very, very high level, and I know you believe that passing health care is essential to getting the deficit under control, but independent analysts also say that even with that, you're going to have to find new government revenues. The former Deputy Treasury Secretary Roger Altman said it is no longer a matter of whether tax revenues must increase, but how. Is he right?
George, it is absolutely right, and very important for everyone to understand that we will not get this economy back on track. Recovery will be not strong and sustained unless we can convince the American people that we're going to have the will to bring these deficits down once recovery is firmly established. Remember, we inherited a $1.3 trillion deficit. The cumulative consequences of the policies this country pursued over the last 8 years left us with $6 trillion more debt than we would have had by making a bunch of commitments to cut taxes and add to spending without paying for those. We are not going to be able to afford to do that. And it is very important people understand that. Our first priority now, though, is to get this economy back on track, make sure this financial system is repaired. Without that, we're not going to get our deficits under control. And the necessary path to fiscal responsibility, the necessary path to getting this country living within our means again, is not just health care reform to bring down those costs, but we're going to do a range of other things, and that's going to be a very difficult challenge for this country. We can do this. It just requires the will to act.
Including new revenues.
Well, we're going to have to we have to do what's necessary. Remember, the critical thing is people understand that when we have recovery established, led by the private sector, then we have to bring these deficits down very dramatically. We have to bring them down to a level where the amount we're borrowing from the world is stable at a reasonable level. And that's going to require some very hard choices. And we're going to have to try to do that in a way that does not add unfairly to the burdens that the average American already faces.
But that's the dilemma.
That is the dilemma.
Isn't it? Because even when you look at health care reform, again, I know you believe it's going to bend the cost curve over time, but the Congressional Budget Office says at best the health care reform plans out there are going to be deficit neutral over the next 10 years. So to bring the deficits down, there's not enough money in the discretionary budget. We all know that. That means more revenues. The President has said the taxes won't go up for any Americans earning under $250,000, but it doesn't appear he's going to be able to keep that promise if you're going to bring the deficits down.
George, again, we can't make these judgments yet about exactly what it's going to take and how we're going to get there. But the very important thing, and no one is going to care about this more than the President of the United States, is for people to understand that we do not have a choice as a country. That if we want an economy that's going to grow in the future, people have to understand we have to bring those deficits down. And it's going to be difficult, hard for us to do. And the path to that is through health care reform, but that's necessary but not sufficient. We're going to do some other things
So
too.
Revenues are on the table as well.
Again, we're not at the point yet where we're going to make a judgment about what it's going to take. But you're
not ruling it out. You can't rule it out.
Well, I think that what the country needs to do is understand we're going to have to do what it takes. We're going to do what's necessary.